So let's talk about prototypical inheritance. I'm going to show you how to perform prototypical inheritance using ES5, introduced in 2011, and ES6 in 2015. So first of all, the previous, I mean, before that, there was also different ways to perform prototypical inheritance, of course, but I'm going to keep this short and probably up to date with the new or with the recent development patterns. So I'm going to create a new object called person. And this is an object, right? So I can have properties. It's nothing exciting. So I'm going to the new property called IQ, which is going to be 100. Legs, 4, right? Something like that. And then I'm going to create another object called developer, IQ, something like that, right? So, but this is the way you can create two objects. But these two objects are disconnected. They don't have any relationship, right? They're independent objects. So instead of doing that, look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to change that a bit. I'm going to say, hey, the developer is object.create person. And here we are already performing prototypical inheritance. So we're saying, hey, I'm going to create a new object called developer, and that new object will extend person. So what that means? That means that what happens if I do person.iq? What will this return? Correct. But what happens if I do developer.iq? What will this return? 100, exactly. Why? Because in this particular case, how many steps or how many blocks our prototype chain on the developer side have? 2. Wrong.
1.
Wrong.
3.
3, correct. That's it, Dave. Why? Because the first step.
One is the person.
Yeah, correct. No, but yeah, 3. But let's sort them out. So the first one, talking about developer, is developer itself, right? The second one, which is the second one? Correct. And what's the third one? The one you were missing? Correct. That's it. Exactly. That's it, right? 3 steps. So when you do,
what I meant with rules stop as well.
no, but I didn't say when do we stop. I said how many steps do we have, and then we see where and when do we step and how, right? And that's what we can check here. So first of all, developer IQ. It will say, hey, wait a minute. Is IQ part of the developer object? Yes or no? No. Correct. We never said developer.iq. And then it will say, okay, no, I'm sorry. No. Continue, please. And then person. Is IQ part of person? Yes. Are we going to check the third step? No, correct. As soon as you go through, return it. Right? That's why this works, because of person. And what happens if now we do developer.iq 120? What will this return, first of all? 120, correct. And let's review the prototype again. Is IQ part of the developer object? Yes. Then just return it. So this will be ignored. And what happened if we created, but then we delete it? What will this return? Undefined. 100. False.
How you create developer altogether?
100. I think Christian is back to business because he's right. So in this particular case,
It's still got a copy of the person.
it's not a copy, it's a reference. It's not a copy, and that's important. And we'll see why it's not a copy, it's a reference. So in that particular case, we have added IQ to the prototype of the developer. But eventually, we delete it, right? So in other words, we can, if we do a console log on line number 9, it will display 120, but then we delete it, so it's not here anymore, and then it will check on the next step of the prototype chain, which is the person, right? So Chris was saying that it's a copy, and the way to prove it's not a copy is what will now return 100, 110, or 130? 100. Everyone agree on that? No? Correct. Exactly. 130. Why? Because it's not a copy. That's very important. When you run line number 7, you are not creating any copy of the object. You're creating a reference.
So it's taking the reference
a
of the
reference.
person and then,
Correct.
and then manipulating new data.
Exactly. And that's a very important thing, because in Java, when we're talking about class-based inheritance, it works differently. One of the good things about JavaScript is that prototypical inheritance is dynamic, is very agile. So you can change the prototype, and then you can access in real time to the updated prototype, right? So I've updated the person, but then immediately after, the developer is already pointing to the new version of IQ. It's not a copy, it's just a reference. Does it make sense? Right?
Question.
Yeah.
When you create a developer that IQ equals to 120,
Yep.
do you add one more key value pair in the developer, or you modify?
No, that's a good question. Look. So we do developer.iq equals 120. So what will this return? Correct, 100. So developer extends person, but this one way, not on the other way around, right? So if we change developer, whatever, right? Person is not going to be affected at all. Yeah, correct. Does it make sense? All right. So then let's add another one. Let's JavaScript developer equals 150. No, that's wrong, right? So object.create developer. You see the hierarchy, right? Now we have how many, so if we access JavaScript developer.iq, so how many elements our prototype chain has? 4, correct. The first one is JavaScript developer. The second one is the developer. The third one is the person. And the fourth one is the object. Does it make sense? So what will this return? 120. Correct. Correct. Why? Is IQ on the first step? No. Is IQ on the second step? Yes. Return it. Right? And what happens if we do what will this return? 120. Correct. That's correct. Because even if we change IQ on the JavaScript developer, we change it here, right? But if we access developer is not affected. It doesn't care what happened on the previous steps of the prototype chain, right? Does that make any sense? Right? So this is probably one of my favorite ways to perform prototypical inheritance, right? But with modern JavaScript, we can also do something, for some people nicer, for some people horrible, but still there, which is creating a class. Class person, right? You know how to create classes. You've been creating classes pretty much every day with React, right? Right? It's pretty much the same example, right? So let's create a person and let's create a developer. So now the question for you. So if I create a variable let person equals new person, and then we do let developer equals new developer. So what developer dot IQ will return? Undefined. Why undefined? Correct. Correct. So how many steps the prototype chain of the developer has? First step, developer. But what's the second step? Object. Correct. Well, it would be class more than object, right? But anyway, yes, class is, at the end of the day, is a type of object. So in this particular example, developer is not extending person. So it will say, okay, developer.iq. Is it part of is this part of this class? No, it's not, right? No problem. Let's check on the proto of the class. For sure, the proto of the class doesn't have any IQ property. So if we run the example, it returns undefined. Remember, if the property is not found, undefined. So how can we fix the problem? The way to perform prototypical inheritance is doing extends person. Do you remember when you created a React class, stateful class, that you do class gallery extends what? Component, correct? So what that means, because of extending component, then we can access the render method, the component did mount, the construct, not the constructor, but component will receive props. All these methods are there thanks to the component, right? That's the trick. So then, based on that, so what will this return now? Correct, 100. Why? Because now we got 3 steps on the prototype chain. The second one is the person. Make sense? Right?
So it won't go further than class. Class and that's it.
It will stop on the second step.
I mean, if it doesn't find it.
If it doesn't find it, so for instance, if we do developer.constantine, so it will check on the first level of the prototype chain, is not there. It will check on the person, because we extend person, is not there. So it will check on the prototype of the class, and I believe Constantine is not part of the prototype class yet, so that should return undefined. Right? It's not complicated, right? It makes sense at some extent, right? And obviously, what happens if we put that? So what will this return? 120. It returns undefined. It returns an error. So what's wrong? Right, that's interesting. That's a classic error. So when you create a class that extends another class, you should always, on the constructor, put super. Why? Because by calling super, you are initializing the other class, the class it extends, right? So you're calling this constructor, right? In other words, if we try that, now is 120. But I'm going to make this more complicated. I don't want to hard code the value, but what we want to pass is a coefficient. So the average IQ is 100 multiplied by the coefficient, right? So let's ignore the developer for now, just on the person. So we said that this particular person has a coefficient of 1.1. So what will this return? 110. Yes, look, this is quite interesting because JavaScript, yeah, sometimes struggle with float operations, right? So that's normal. You get something really weird. It's 110, but look, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. How can we round the number? Math.round. So math.round, 110, right? So now we can do the same with developer, right? So we can do what? Look at that. So what will this return? $110. 110, 150. I disagree. I think that will return either an error, not a number, probably that will be the right answer.
Developer doesn't expect a magnitude.
What?
Developer doesn't expect a magnitude.
That's correct. That's correct. That's the first problem. Look, when we initialize, when we create a new instance of the developer class, the constructor doesn't expect any argument. So this is going to be ignored, definitely. It's going to be ignored. Because it's going to be ignored, super will call the constructor of the parent class. So what will be the value of the coefficient? Undefined, correct. So then we'll multiply 100 by undefined, which will be probably not a number, if not an error, and then we'll try to round that, which will make everything just worse, right? The way to debug that, as you know, is adding breakpoints. So let's see if we are right. So in that particular case, right, we're still calling the person, right? So that's why it goes here directly, 1.1, 100 multiplied by 1.1. Yeah, it works. That works fine. No problem at all. Right. Yeah, but I now want to call the developer. Sorry. Right. No, actually, yeah, we don't need that. Let's simplify the example. Otherwise, we'll get confused. So I didn't want about the result. I just want to follow the stack trace. That's correct. So we have created a new instance of developer. It goes to the constructor. We're ignoring 1.5. So then it will jump to the constructor of person, exactly, and look at the coefficient, undefined, right? Because of that, this will return undefined, right? We can, let's just display it. Let's see what happens now. But that's to return not a number or undefined. Not a number, correct, right? So how can we fix the problem? You'll tell me.
Add coefficient in line 11.
Correct, Albert is right. We add the coefficient here, and that's it. Correct, exactly, that's it. The important, the tricky part is when we call super, we're calling the constructor of the parent class. Because of that, we can pass arguments, right? Like that. Let's add some breakpoints. So if the theory is correct, coefficient 1.5, that's good. And now it should jump to line number 5. 1.5 is still there, you see? It makes sense. Now it makes a lot of sense. So what should this return? 150. Exactly. Right? And obviously, you can extend this mechanism. You can have a new class, JavaScript developer that extends developer, and blah, 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 blah. Is there any question?
So we can create a variable like IP address. So
Yep.
like a string number. This is like his IP address.
You can create a variable.
Like, how we can.
Yeah, but at the end, the variable will be a string, or will be an object, or will be an array, or will be a boolean.
Yeah, how can I declare a new variable?
So how can you declare a new variable? So let IP address equals whatever, right? That's you got the new variable.
But it is a string.
It's a string, yes.
Can I create a new type of?
No, you can create a class, you can create a function, and that will, you can create a class called IP address, definitely, right? So you can do IP address, and in here you can create methods and stuff like that. So that will be your custom type of data, but at the end of the day, it will be a class, it will be an object, it will be a function. Okay? Yep.
When we call super,
Yep. Here. Yep.
yeah, when we call super, we are calling the construction, the person, no?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. When we call super, we call the constructor of the class that we're extending, because we need to initialize both the child and the parent. Right? Cool. Any question? Right? Remember, prototypical inheritance, very important. Remember how it works. If you have any question, just let me know. Cheers, guys.